This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Hi, my name's John Cordy and my car just broke down, so that's cool. Anyway, so I've had the PRS DGT SE, I think for about a week now, and I think I may have already said, but I've definitely played this already, I think, more than I ever played the real PRS DGT core that I had, and I'm not sure exactly why, but for some reason this guitar speaks to me a lot more. I didn't think necessarily I was going to love it because I'm not sure that the PRS DGT setup is necessarily totally for me, but this one actually, I can pick it up and it plays as well as, you know, my Gibson Les Pauls. I think it's got a really, really slinky string feel. I think that is partly to do with how tall these frets are. Apparently on the real PRS DGT, the frets are like taller than your average fret, and what it means is that the string kind of sits up a little bit higher off of the fretboard. Whether that makes a huge difference, I don't know. Perhaps it's partly down to it just being a really good fret job, which hasn't always been the case with some of the PRSs that I've seen coming out of Indonesia. The Silver Skies, although I didn't have any particular issues with high frets or anything, I don't remember them having this super slinky feel. They almost feel as good as sort of stainless frets. Now, over time, of course, that's probably going to change, and also I think other people have had possibly way different experiences. Please let people know in the comments if you got a dud. I have heard a few people say that some of the DGT SEs have come in with some QC issues. I guess they're making these in quite big quantities and they're coming across the sea in you know, not ideal conditions for guitars, probably. So some of them you might get some issues with. Hopefully, if you've got a decent retailer, I bought this from Peach. I'd hope that they do like a little bit of a QC check when they get in and just check that things are as they should be. I've not found really a single flaw on this, which again, I wasn't expecting. Although I was thinking this is an expensive guitar for an Indonesian-made guitar, I was still expecting it to be sort of your typical Indonesian-made guitar sort of thing. So like the Silver Sky SEs that I played, you could sort of, you know, it didn't feel to me exactly like the high, solid made quality of the Silver Sky core model, whereas this to me does feel like a much more expensive guitar in my hands for some reason. And I'd be happy to tell you, you know, if I thought this did end up coming in overpriced and disappointing, but it just hasn't been the case. I really do like the neck shape on the DGT. The one consideration I had would be to get this sort of experience from a guitar, what else could you buy? And the answer for me seems to be probably something like a custom 22, right? Or they came out with the McCarty or the 594, but those are expensive as well. So I think maybe the earlier, or you know, the models that have been around for a bit longer, the custom 22s. However, I think those would have slightly different appointments, like a different neck shape, different frets, and obviously sort of different pickups and different configuration. But I guess it would be a roughly similar experience in terms of playing something that looks and feels and sounds like a PRS, right? So if you've got some thoughts on what might fit the bill there, I guess we're thinking something mahogany body, maple cap, 2 humbucker with a trem. If you can think of something in that realm, and also without like a super skinny shredder neck. So this is like something like a 50s Les Paul type shape, to me it feels like. I guess the only negative that I can think of really is that it is a PRS, which is sort of a polarizing brand for some folks. Some folks don't like the headstock, some folks don't like the birds, some folks don't like the appearance at all, and some folks don't like the brand PRS for lots of reasons. Leave yours below if you want to. I find it just quite interesting. Some people seem to have a little bit of an irrational hatred for them. Some people just don't really gel with the shape and the general appearance. And some people seem to not really like Paul himself. You know, there are plenty of valid reasons. I think there's some invalid ones as well. I think another thing that people have said, and I don't necessarily totally disagree with, is that there's not necessarily a ton of vibe for them around a PRS. And that could be sort of, you know, you think about something like a Fender Strat, you think about something like a Gibson Les Paul, there's history around that instrument, for me at least. PRS is not necessarily quite there yet in terms of having players that have played them for so many decades that it becomes sort of an icon of rock and roll or whatever. But aside from that, I think they do make some really, really good instruments. I think the price can be a little bit high on some of them. But in this case, I think for $1,000, £1,000, whatever you end up paying for this, I think this has really impressed me for that money. And again, you know, when you're paying £1,000 for a guitar, your expectations, I think, should be pretty high. And I can't find a fault with this guitar. So in this case, I think they really knocked it out of the park. Again, this is just one guitar. I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch more PRS SE DGTs to see if this is a one-off. This one came in fairly light. I specifically chose it for that reason from Peach. They had one heavier one, one lighter one. This was under £8. And yeah, so it gets sort of a little bit of a Les Paul type feel with it, but with a trem. It's kind of that spot between a Les Paul and a Strat, I guess, like most PRSs are. The only thing for me that I'm considering changing, because I think this is a guitar that I might keep going forward because it does some really cool stuff. I think I really enjoy playing it. It's maybe changing the electronics configuration. I think that the pickups themselves sound really good. We're in split mode there. Bridge. Neck. and middle. And then if we split, we get some sparkle. So the only thing that you need to know about a DGT if you're not au fait with them, coil split here, but the main thing is that this pickup is controlled by this volume and this pickup is controlled by this volume. So I get caught out by this all the time where I'm kind of on my neck pickup, go to swell it in, but it's actually down here. And equally, if you end on your neck pickup and you're a Strat player, go to kind of fade it out and nothing happens. That's the main sort of gripe that I have with the instrument, but that's kind of one of the design features of the DGT anyway. The tremolo has actually ended up being quite stable once it's settled in as well, so that's another great thing. I think the DGT probably, at least in the UK, is definitely more famous than Dave Grissom himself. Like, the guitar, it has become, I think, bigger than the artist for whatever reason. Like, these specs for some reason seem to speak to people. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about why it is that the DGT is kind of so well liked. Is it maybe because it can do everything pretty well? Probably it's like a really decent, versatile guitar that can do pretty much most of the things you need. It's got some of that single coil vibe when you want it. It's got the humbucker vibe when you need it. So for me, what I might end up doing is probably thinking about switching around this configuration so that I'm not getting trapped by the rather weird volume knob configuration. Aside from that, I wouldn't change anything about it, I don't think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers.